Hey, welcome to That One Time, the place for unforgettable moments and stories worth sharing. Funny, touching, surprising, just like life itself. Grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's dive in. The monitor light went out, the last file was closed. Elena rubbed her eyes wearily, her gaze falling on the clock. 10? She exclaimed in surprise. The phone in her hand came to life, showing 3 missed calls from Paul. Tapping her pen nervously on the desk, she dialed his number. The ring stretched on, and Elena was about to hang up when she heard his voice on the other end. Displeased, tense. "Yes, darling." Her own voice sounded guilty, almost fawning. "Forgive me." Paul sighed, remained silent, but didn't hang up, which was already a good sign. "I know I promised to finish early today," she continued, feeling the tension build. "But the project," he cut her off sharply. "The project, of course. I understand everything, Elle. Work comes before everything. But you're marrying me, not a project." "Paul, our wedding is next month." "I remember," Elena replied as gently as possible. "All right, I'll wait for you at home." His voice softened. "I'll be there soon, darling," she promised. Putting down the phone, Elena slowly exhaled. How could she have forgotten her promise? However, it was typical of her. Work had remained her only passion for years, until Paul appeared 2 years ago. Smiling, she looked at the elegant diamond ring on her finger. She remembered how nervous he was, kneeling on one knee, how the violin played, how strangers applauded, and how she whispered yes through tears of happiness. Only a year had passed, and their relationship had changed beyond recognition. Paul blamed her work for this, but Elena had always worked so much. True, a year ago she had been promoted, and the workload had increased. Now the future of the entire firm depended on her project, and she simply couldn't let her colleagues down. Paul didn't understand this. When she finally reached home, he was already asleep. Elena gently stroked his hair. He snuffled like a child, but didn't wake up. Sighing, she went to the bathroom. Tomorrow morning he would be silent again. In the mirror, she saw a tall, slender brunette with a perfectly smooth bob haircut and huge black eyes framed by long eyelashes. Surely such a woman shouldn't spend her life buried in a monitor. Elena smiled at her reflection. The decision came suddenly. She would take a day off this week. She would get herself ready, put on a beautiful dress, order dinner and wine, put on some music, and wait for him. Then he would definitely forgive her. Of course, she would have to promise to work less. Maybe when the project was finished, that would happen, or at least leave on time. Elena's habit of working hard dated back to her childhood. No one, seeing her now, in an expensive suit, in a new foreign car, with an impeccable hairstyle and manicure, would believe that she grew up in a remote village. An hour-and-a-half drive to the city, but it was true backwoods. Broken roads, dilapidated huts, cows and pigs wandering everywhere. That's how she remembered her small homeland. She was raised by her grandmother, although her parents were alive. Her mother divorced her father when Elena was 4, and she barely remembered him. Her first vivid memory was a long, bumpy ride on an old bus with her mother and many bags. At her grandmother's in the village, little Ellie was happy. She could play all day, run around with the neighbors' children, and eat her grandmother's pies. But her mother didn't like it there, and after a few months, she left for the city, promising to return as soon as she got settled. At first, she came often, then less and less. One day, her mother came and said she had met a man and was getting married. She even brought Uncle Leo with her, but Elena didn't like him. He tried too hard to seem nice, smiling unnaturally. However, her mother was happy with him. They weren't in a hurry to pick up Elena. "Why isn't Mom coming for me?" the girl asked. Her grandmother only sighed, explaining about the small apartment, and immediately added, "Aren't you happy with me?" "No, Granny." And so they lived together, just the two of them. Gradually, Elena got used to it. Her grandmother was kind, cheerful, never despondent. Whatever happened, she would repeat, "The main thing is we're alive and healthy. As long as your hands and feet are whole and your head works, everything can be fixed." Her grandmother's name was Elena Constance, and her granddaughter was named after her. In the village, they were called Old Elena and Little Ellie. But years took their toll, and Ellie understood early on that her grandmother needed help. At first, her mother sent a little money, but after getting married, she stopped. Her grandmother's pension was barely enough. The garden, chickens, and a goat saved them. But Ellie understood. It wouldn't always be like this. It was up to her, Ellie, to work to provide a better life for herself and her grandmother. From childhood, she looked for ways to earn extra money. Some women went to the city to sell vegetables and dairy products, but her grandmother wouldn't let Ellie go alone. "Too young for the city and the market. We have enough money," she would say. But Elna saw how her grandmother denied herself everything, how old boots were resoled again and again. "If you won't let me go to the city, I'll find a way to earn money here," the granddaughter stubbornly declared. She gathered berries and mushrooms, selling them to resellers. Once a week, a man came who bought medicinal herbs. Her grandmother showed her where to collect them, and Ellie would go into the forest early in the morning. She also learned that the shop accepted empty bottles. Many people had them piled up, but no one wanted to wash them. Ellie collected unwanted junk from the yards, washed it, and handed it in. She also handed in scrap metal that she collected with the boys. Freckled Andy, their leader, explained the rules. "Everything you find is yours, but you carry it yourself. Don't think you're a girl." Ellie quickly understood that the main thing wasn't weight, but price, copper. She figured out which spare parts contained it. Climbing through the old car dump, she found copper and sold it. With this money, she bought clothes, shoes, and school supplies for herself, and she kept a close eye on her grandmother's wardrobe. "You're my little breadwinner," her grandmother would say with tears of tenderness, accepting the money. "When I grow up, Granny," Ellie would reply, "I'll take you to the city. I'll buy a big house and we'll live there. You won't have to work in the garden." Elena Constance would laugh. "I'm happy here, little one, but if you don't forget your old grandmother, I'll be happy." At school, Elna was an excellent student, especially good at exact sciences and social studies. After the 11th grade, she enrolled in economics at the best city university. Her mother offered her a place to live, but Elna refused. "I'm fine in the dormitory, and it's crowded with your little one." Her mother had a son, Stevie, 2 years ago. It seemed after that she completely forgot about Elena. Elena pretended not to be offended, but sometimes she cried into her pillow at night. What was it about her that her mother loved her brother more? At university, she also studied well, worked from the first year, and sent money to her grandmother every month. "You'll see, grandmother," she would say. "I'll graduate, get a job at a cool firm, move you here, and we'll live well." Her grandmother only smiled. "The main thing is that you're happy, my dear granddaughter." Elena passed her final exams with honors, received a red diploma, and was planning to go to the village. But her mother called. "My dear Elena," she cried into the phone, "your grandmother has died." Everyone went to the village. Mother, stepfather, Ellie, and little Stevie. The next week passed in a haze. Her mother and stepfather dealt with the funeral while Elna looked after her brother. She sat on the floor in her familiar grandmother's house, watched Stevie play with his toys, and thought, what now? She had promised her grandmother she would take her away, buy a house. What was the point of trying now? "Ellie, we need to talk," her mother said after the funeral. "We found your grandmother's will. She wanted the house to go to you." Elna shrugged indifferently. "It doesn't matter to me. I won't live here anyway. Everything reminds me of grandmother and childhood." "Do as you wish," her mother sighed. A week later, Elena gathered her strength and returned to the city. This was the life she had dreamed of. She got a job and worked her way up for all the following years. By the age of 28, she became the youngest managing director in a large company. Her personal life didn't work out. She simply didn't let anyone get close until she met Paul. Maybe it was love at first sight. Maybe it was just time for strong feelings. But mutual attraction arose immediately. Paul was her complete opposite. Easygoing, cheerful, carefree, he balanced the serious Elena. He had his own fitness studio, starting as a trainer, then building a team and opening his business. Elena immediately warned him that she worked a lot. Paul replied, I love my job too, and if I finish earlier, I'll make dinner and wait for my beautiful girl. At first, it was like that, but lately, Paul had been getting increasingly annoyed by her work, and they started arguing. Then Elena decided to make a surprise. She had to act so that her fiancé wouldn't suspect anything, so she behaved as usual, trying to call and text more often after arguments. In one of these conversations, she asked, What time are you finishing today? Why? Paul became wary. Nothing, Elena replied immediately. It's just that I'll be late again. Sorry. She thought she heard him sigh with relief. Well, I'll be back late too, so it's no big deal. Elena smiled. Thanks for understanding everything. Of course, darling. He hung up. He's probably still offended, Elena sighed. Never mind, I'll melt his heart today. Her new dress had just been delivered, thin, made of soft red fabric, perfectly accentuating her figure. In this, he'll definitely forgive me, Elena thought contentedly, putting it back in the box. Her colleagues were surprised when she announced she was leaving early, but no one dared to ask aloud. Elena arrived home, parked in her usual spot, and was surprised to see Paul's car next to hers. He must have taken a taxi today, she thought. Agitated, she didn't even wait for the elevator and ran up to the 5th floor. She opened the door and froze. Paul's sneakers and some red women's sandals were carelessly lying in the hallway. No, she thought. This only happens in bad comedies. She took a deep breath, exhaled, trying to compose herself. She calmly put the box with the dress on the floor, took off her shoes, and slowly walked further into the apartment. Almost immediately, she heard her fiancé's voice from the bedroom. Elena slowly entered the room. The first thing she saw was Paul's back. Then she noticed the girl. So that's it, Elena said calmly. So I wasn't imagining it when I heard the joy in your voice at the news that I would be late today. Paul turned around sharply, such fear in his eyes that Elena found it amusing. The young blonde girl shrieked loudly and pulled the blanket over herself. Elena! Paul breathed out in astonishment. She expected any reaction, clumsy explanations, excuses, pleas for forgiveness, but her fiancé managed to surprise her. He sighed somewhat sadly and said, Well, maybe it's for the best. Then he turned to the girl huddled under the blanket. Jane, wait for me in the car, please. I'll be down in half an hour. Elena watched in surprise as Jane fearfully emerged from under the blanket, quickly got dressed, and disappeared into the hallway. A second later, the front door slammed shut. Okay, Elena said. And what does all this mean? Paul sat on the bed, rubbing his temples wearily. It means I'm tired and have been thinking for a long time that we should break up. Elena walked over and sat beside him. But why? I thought we just had some small problems. Her fiancé shook his head. The problem is deeper. We're too different. It's not that you work a lot. It's that work is more important to you than me. It always has been. He looked at her. And I can't live like that. I'm wired differently. I'm not a go-getter. I like working, but I'm not ready to live in the gym like you live in the office. I want to enjoy life, and you don't know how. Well, you're probably right. It will be better for both of us. I'm sorry, Paul said. He stood up, got a suitcase, and started packing his things. Elena went to the kitchen and sat there until she heard the front door slam shut. All right, Elena told herself. At least I have my job. I'll finish the project soon, take a vacation, and start a new life. But everything went wrong. A week later, when she arrived at the office, she found it being searched. Elena Victoria, a strange man in a black suit, addressed her. Yes? She replied in surprise. What's happening? He ignored the question. Let's go to your office. We need to take your statement. It turned out the firm's management was suspected of major fraud. Work was frozen, and the accounts and property of key employees were seized. Wait, Elena said. Does that mean my property is also seized? Yes. Your car, apartment, all accounts. And for how long? Until the circumstances are clarified, he replied coldly. But I had absolutely no idea. And what should I do? Live with friends or relatives? Elena signed the papers and went home. She was allowed to take what she needed before being evicted indefinitely. On the way, she called her lawyer, but he offered no encouragement. The accusations are serious. Investigations are long, months, maybe even years. And all this time my property is under arrest? He sighed. I'm afraid so, Elena Victoria. The only place she could go was her old grandmother's house in the village. After her grandmother's death, Elena had never been there. At first glance, the house hadn't changed, just become more dilapidated. Elena took an old rusty key from her bag. Well, hello, grandmother, she said softly. In childhood, the house had seemed huge. Now it was small, old, but so familiar. She walked through the room, sat on the bed where she had once slept. What should I do now, Granny? She asked the empty room. I thought I had everything. It turns out you can lose everything in an instant. A fiancé, love, a career, money, an apartment. What's left? Your little house that I forgot about. And then, for the first time in many years, she cried bitterly, inconsolably. Elena woke up in the morning. She had fallen asleep without noticing and forgotten to draw the curtains. Bright sunlight woke her. Well, she sighed, so many years without an alarm clock, and yesterday I even forgot to set it. Although what's the point now? There's no work. Her stomach rumbled, and she remembered she hadn't eaten anything since yesterday's lunch. There was nothing edible in her grandmother's house, of course. She needed to go to the shop. It was still very early, and Elena decided to spend the time cleaning. As she tidied up, sweeping away the dust, she didn't even notice how she became distracted from her sad thoughts. Perhaps, if this is for a long time, I'll have to find work here, Elena reasoned. Maybe I'll start a farm, chickens, geese, or a cow. After cleaning, she felt even hungrier. Relieved to see the time was right, Elena went to the shop. She walked through the village and noted with surprise that it was perhaps better than in her childhood. Many new houses had appeared. The old ones were repaired and painted. The shop was in the same place, sparkling with a new sign. Painted, not printed, Elena thought. A talented artist. Someone local? She went inside, surprised by the cleanliness and coziness and the assortment. The shop assistant, a young, pretty girl, smiled warmly. Good morning. You're our first customer today. Elena smiled back. Good morning to you too. Nice to hear. Are you here for the summer? The girl asked. I don't know yet. Did you guess quickly that I'm not local? There aren't many residents here. I know everyone by face. Elena laughed. Right, I didn't think of that. I lived here until I was 17. Then I moved to the city. She looked thoughtfully at the shop assistant. Strange. You're younger, but not by much. I should remember you. The girl smiled. No, I only came a year ago with my older brother. Is that so? Elena was surprised. To live? Uh-huh. I didn't think anyone would voluntarily want to come to such a backwater. Anya was a little offended. You shouldn't say that, she said. It's nice here. Not far from the city. Beautiful nature. Clean air. My brother wanted to come. He's an artist. Is that so? Elena exclaimed. Did he paint the sign? It's beautiful. Thank you, I'll tell him. But I've kept you talking. You're here for shopping. It was interesting. My name is Elena. Very nice to meet you. Anya. The shop assistant held out a small, strong hand, and Elena shook it. She dictated her shopping list. Anya quickly brought things, offered advice. In the end, both girls were pleased with each other. Where do you live? Anya asked. The second to last house at the edge by the lake, Elena replied. Great, Anya exclaimed happily. My brother and I are in the last one. I'll definitely introduce you. Okay, Elena replied. I'd be happy to. The weather was wonderful, and Elena decided to eat outside. She didn't feel like cooking, so she made cheese and sausage sandwiches on fresh bread, brewed tea, and went out onto the porch. The sun was shining, birds were singing. Elena sat, ate, and enjoyed the day. She was surprised. She couldn't remember the last time she had just sat like this, without work, plans, or thoughts about business. Suddenly, a meow sounded near her feet. Elena turned her head and saw a fat striped cat that had silently climbed onto the porch. He was looking at her with interest, or rather, at the plate. Judging by your look, you're not starving, Elena remarked. The cat looked and persistently repeated, meow. All right, you extortionist. Here. She pulled out some sausage and gave it to the cat. He sniffed it, took it carefully, put it on the porch, and started eating. Enjoy your meal, Elena said and closed her eyes, basking in the sun. A few seconds later, her peace was disturbed by a male voice. Sandro! Sandro! Where are you? Ran off to the neighbors again? Elena looked at the cat, but he didn't react. I think that's for you, Elena remarked. Sandro, are you here? The gate leaf swung open, and a handsome man with blue eyes, curly blonde hair, and a small light brown beard appeared. He clearly hadn't expected to see anyone but the cat and looked embarrassed. Sorry, he's my cat. He constantly runs off to this house. Sometimes I come to catch him. Honestly, I haven't touched anything but the cat. Elena smiled. It's all right. You have a nice cat. She looked at Sandro, who was washing himself after finishing the sausage. He's already begged for food from you too, his owner said regretfully. It's impossible to refuse him, Elena replied. You must be the artist Anya's brother? That's me, he said, surprised. I don't deserve that title, but yes, Anya's brother. Arthur. He held out his hand, strong like his sister's, but larger. Elena, the girl said, shaking his hand. Very nice to meet you. If I had known someone lived here, I wouldn't have intruded. I just arrived yesterday. You couldn't have known. And I met your sister a couple of hours ago at the shop. Then it's clear. Are you staying long? I don't know yet. Most likely, yes. Arthur picked up the cat, who meowed discontentedly but didn't resist. Come visit anytime, Arthur said. I'm often home. My sister works until 6, then she'll come too. Okay, Elena replied. I'll drop by. Give me a couple of days to settle in, get everything in order. Of course, if you need help, just ask. The doors are open. Literally. The neighbor and the cat left, and Elena reached for her phone. She was waiting for a call from her lawyer with good news, or from Paul. Thinking of him, she cursed. Things to do. I'll go do something useful. Until evening, Elena tidied up the house. She washed the windows, brushed away cobwebs, vacuumed the furniture and the huge, heavy carpet that covered the entire room. As long as she could remember, it had always been there. Her grandmother, it seemed, had never taken it out. Perhaps the material was of good quality, only the colors had faded over the years. At first, she wanted to pull it out, but she grabbed a corner and realized how heavy it was. Let it stay, she decided. Grandmother didn't move it for a reason. The first few days were spent cleaning. There was no time to think. Now that the house was in order, visiting the neighbors was a good idea. Anya is sweet, lively. We'll find common ground. She has a business sense. Her brother is probably just a sweet eccentric. You can talk to people like that too. Out of interest, she resolutely stood up, went outside, hung the rusty lock, and walked to the neighbors. She immediately noticed how different their house was. She didn't remember who lived there in her childhood, but now it was renovated, plastered, painted a soft salmon color. Beautiful, Elena thought. Unusual. She approached the gate, pushed it. It wasn't locked. In the yard was an old SUV. Anya probably used it to go to the city for goods. There were also flowers growing, the most ordinary wildflowers. Strange, they were usually considered weeds and pulled up, replaced by cultivated ones. Arthur, Elena called out. Anya. Meow, came the reply. Sandro was sitting on the porch, squinting in the sun. Hi, buddy, Elena greeted him. Where's your owner? I'm here. A voice sounded unexpectedly close, making her jump. She was standing by the open window from which Arthur had replied. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. It's all right. I just got bored at home. I remembered your invitation. Arthur smiled. I'm very glad. My sister was upset you didn't stop by. She wanted to drop in this evening. He narrowed his eyes slyly. If you're not busy, we could go for a walk. I was looking for a spot for a painting. Elena shrugged. She didn't like pointless walks, but there was nothing else to do. Okay, she replied. Then I'm coming. Arthur went inside and a couple of minutes later appeared with a huge backpack on his shoulders. Ready, let's go. Should I close the door? Elena reminded him. And the windows. What if someone gets in? He shrugged. Everyone seems nice here, But if someone decides to, that's on their conscience. Philosophy, Elena thought, but said nothing. They went out the gate and Arthur confidently led the way along a path. At first, Elena thought they would go to the lake where she used to swim as a child, but they walked past without stopping. "Tell me about yourself," Arthur suddenly asked. "You're so mysterious." Elena smiled. "I don't know why you think that. The house was empty. I needed a place to live, so I moved in. That's all. Your choice. I won't pry. It's just that you're clearly not the kind of person who would come here voluntarily. Then I can say you and your sister are no less mysterious." He laughed. "That's true. Do you think we should stop here? It's a nice spot." Talking, Elena didn't notice how they reached a small hill overlooking the lake. "It's beautiful," Elena admitted. "I lived here for so many years, but I never saw it from this angle." Arthur gave her a blanket, she spread it out and sat down. The artist took out his easel, canvas, paints and brushes from his backpack. The day was warm, not hot, and she enjoyed being out in nature. "If I talk, will it bother you much?" she asked. Arthur shook his head negatively. "Not at all. The hands paint, the head can be occupied with anything. Talking with a smart, interesting girl is doubly pleasant." Elena smiled. "Okay, will you be offended if I ask something personal?" He shrugged. "I don't think I'm easily offended. You can try. Your work? It's not very profitable, is it? Especially in a village." "True, but it's enough to live on. The main thing is it's what I love." "Like your sister. She has an excellent shop," Elena remarked. "It seems she knows how to run a business." Arthur smiled. "I immediately saw that you and Anya are similar." Elena decided to be honest. "Yes, I relate to people who have a passion they dedicate themselves to completely and get results." "In monetary terms?" Arthur clarified with a smile. "Are you against money?" "No. It's just that different people need different amounts. Many don't know how to earn and comfort themselves by saying money isn't the main thing." She stopped herself, thinking that Arthur might think that, but the artist wasn't offended, he just smiled. "I really do think that," he said. "I'm not an ascetic, I don't want to live in a shack, but the life I lead suits me. I feel happy." "I'm happy for you," Elena replied, "but mine doesn't suit me, not now. I lived in a huge apartment, drove a luxurious car, hundreds of people reported to me. I was absolutely happy. Now I've lost everything, and I don't know when I'll get it back. That doesn't suit me." The artist turned and looked at her. "Strange. When I saw you feeding the cat sausage, you looked happy." "A moment. But life is made of moments." Elena couldn't think of what to say. She just looked at the lake, remembering swimming with the kids until her lips were blue. Running home, her grandmother would rub her with a towel, take her to the bathhouse. The heat would penetrate to her bones. It was nice to sit at the table, wrapped in a towel, watch her grandmother fuss, pour tea with milk, push the pies closer. But even later, in the city, she remembered the apartment, huge, expensive, in the center, in a super modern complex. The best designer had done the renovation, but she was hardly ever there, always at work. The expensive car, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 in the evening, because there were no traffic jams. Work. Did it make her happy? Or was it the only place where she felt important, needed, where she was valued and praised? And to not lose that, she was ready to spend her whole life there. "I don't even have friends," she suddenly thought sadly. She had friends at university. She saw them for 6 months. Then she kept refusing to meet because of work. They stopped inviting her. Making friends at work. Everyone was either a subordinate or a competitor. It was strange that she managed to start dating Paul. Lost in such thoughts, Elena didn't notice how time passed. She came to when Arthur spoke. "I think that's enough for today." "Can I see?" Elena asked. "Of course." He stepped aside and she saw the painting. She was surprised. She had expected a landscape, but it was her. The lake, the forest, far away, blurred in the background. Most of the painting was Elena. Her face was barely visible, but the pose, the lowered head, her inner state. "Yes, you can see how desperate I am here," she thought sadly. How did he manage to capture that? "You didn't like it?" Arthur asked, concerned. Elena forced herself to smile. Unexpected, she said honestly. I didn't notice you were painting me. Arthur smiled. I didn't plan to, but I looked at you and I knew I wouldn't rest until I captured your state today. Elena chuckled awkwardly. You definitely have talent. Thank you. Sorry if I embarrassed you. It's hard to embarrass me. He smiled. My sister will be back soon. Let's go back and make dinner. Haven't you gotten tired of me all day? On the contrary, it's interesting. In the time I've lived here, I've studied everyone. I wanted something new. And then there's you. Is that so? Am I just a new subject for you? He laughed. Not only, I was curious to imagine what you were like. I didn't expect to see you in person. Seeing her confusion, he explained. Your neighbor, old Johnny, told me a lot. Elena chuckled. Is that so? And what did he say? That people like you are rarely born. That you were special from childhood, bright like the sun, strong like the wind. That you never doubted yourself. That there was no task you couldn't handle. That's not quite true now, Elena remarked. Not at all. That's exactly how you look. She smiled sadly. Look at the painting. Clearly not. Arthur sighed. I understand that serious things have happened, but I think you didn't come back by chance. Elena laughed. So you're not just selfless, romantic, altruistic, but also a mystic? Arthur laughed. Too much? Yes, but you're right. It's as if I'm regaining my strength here. I'm very happy about that. The cat was waiting on the porch. Sandro, Elena suddenly said. In honor of Sandro Botticelli? Yes, Arthur replied. Banal. Well, the cat meowed expressively, and his owner frowned. I had hoped life in nature would teach him to forage. He does forage as best he can, Elena said, defending the cat. It was cool inside Arthur's house. The walls, as she expected, were covered with paintings. You really are talented, Elena said, looking around. Thank you. Will you help with dinner? Of course. By the time Anya arrived, everything was ready. Wow, she said, seeing Elena. I wanted to come over today. They hugged. Elena had only seen the girl once before, but she felt an inexplicable fondness. I've been bothering your, as it turns out, talented brother all day, Elena said. Anya laughed. Yes, he's almost a genius. Enough, Arthur grumbled. Let's sit down. At dinner, Elena spoke about the paintings again. What I saw today is amazing. She addressed Anya, hoping for her support. It's a crime that Arthur's paintings are hanging in a village house where no one sees them. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the artist frown, but she continued. I can look among my contacts for someone who can help organize an exhibition. I'm sure Arthur is destined for huge success. To her surprise, Anya smiled and shook her head. Thank you for the offer, but we don't need that. What? Elena thought she had misheard. Okay, Arthur, but you, Anya. When we first met, I thought you were just like me. You have a business sense and… We don't need fame, attention, success, Arthur interrupted. We had our reasons for coming here. I don't want big exhibitions. I want to live here quietly and peacefully. Elena looked at his sister, and for a second it seemed tears glistened in Anya's eyes. What's happening? Elena wondered. I just wanted to help. All right, she said aloud. I've intruded. I see you have personal reasons. She carefully stood up, stroked Sandro, who had settled on a chair. I've overstayed my welcome. It was a good day. Nice to meet you. Goodbye. Neither brother nor sister said a word. Only when Elena was outside the gate did a breathless Anya catch up with her. Elena, wait! Elena looked back. The girl's reddened eyes showed she was on the verge of tears. Forgive us, Anya suddenly said. Honestly, I really want to be friends. And my brother liked you, which is rare. He tries not to let people get close. There are reasons. We really want to be friends. About the gallery. It's a wonderful offer if circumstances were different. It's a pity I can't tell you everything. She grabbed Elena's fingers with her small, strong hands, squeezing them tightly. Just believe me, there are reasons why we came here and live a quiet life. Promise not to be offended. Okay, Elena replied. I won't. The days passed calmly. Elena called her lawyer, tried to contact the firm's management. There was no news. The investigation is ongoing. When it will end and what will happen is unclear. All that remained was to wait. This was the worst part. To keep herself busy, Elena grew closer to her neighbors. She helped Anya at the shop. They went to the city for goods several times. Elena helped unload, arrange items, and do paperwork. "This isn't your level," she once told her friend. "You could easily handle a chain of supermarkets. Work for me, you'd be in charge of a huge department." Anya smiled. "I'm happy here too. Elena noted the strange phrase, but decided the time wasn't right to ask for details. When she wasn't helping Anya, she visited Arthur. He took her out into nature several times. Elena was surprised every time. She had lived here for so many years, but Arthur, who had arrived recently, easily found such breathtakingly beautiful places. "Just an artist's ability," he answered modestly. "Another one of your talents," she clarified. The artist shook his head. "You're an interesting girl," he remarked. "When we first met, you pretended to be cold, acted like you weren't interested in people, but in reality, you're very attentive. You see the good core in everyone, which the person themselves doesn't suspect." Elena was embarrassed. "You're overpraising me." "You underestimate yourself. You never had problems with self-esteem. This is different." They were silent for a while. She watched Arthur diligently sketch the clouds, wondering how he managed. Then a question came to Elena. "Tell me, what do you imagine the future will be like in 10 or 20 years? He sighed, looked into the distance. "That's too long a time to predict," he replied. "For now, I can say I like it here. I want to stay forever." The last part sounded a bit gloomy, and Elena wanted to put something warm on, to shake off the shivers. She suddenly realized that with each passing day, she was growing more attached to the village, to the brother and sister. 2 weeks later, the lawyer called. "Elena Victoria!" His voice was practically bursting through the phone. That's the tone used to announce either very good or very bad news. "The investigation is over. No violations," he shouted. "We're waiting for you at the office tomorrow. You can return to your apartment." Elena exhaled sharply, sat down on the floor. Her head was spinning. "You're not joking?" she asked just in case. The lawyer was taken aback. "God forbid! Of course not. Sorry, it's unexpected. Thank you for the news." She put the phone on the floor, trying to compose herself. Wonderful news, she should be happy. But for some reason, she immediately thought that this meant leaving the village, returning to the endless work cycle where there was no peace or quiet. Meow! Elena turned her head in surprise. It was hot, the door wasn't closed, only the sheer curtain. Taking advantage of this, the cat entered the house, looking as if Elena owed him something. "You're cheeky," Elena said. She stood up, cut a piece of sausage, and gave it to the cat. He didn't even look at it, persistently repeating, "Meow. Your holiness, purriness, there's nothing else. Eat this or go home and bother your owner." Meow. Elena sighed, scooped up the impudent cat, and went to the neighbors. "Arthur," she called through the window, which was open as always. "I brought the cat." No one answered. "Arthur?" Silence. She could have left Sandro, but for some reason, she decided to go in. She saw Arthur immediately. He was lying on the floor unconscious. "Arthur!" She rushed to him, checked his pulse. Alive. She dialed Anya, explained everything. "I'll be there in a minute," she replied instantly. Elena started thinking. His heart was beating. He was breathing. She gently slapped his cheek. Arthur tried to open his eyes. "Can you hear me?" Elena asked. "Hold on, I'll call an ambulance." "No need," he whispered. "My sister—" "I'm here!" Anya quickly darted into the kitchen, returned with a glass of water and a pill. She helped her brother swallow it. Together with Elena, they moved him onto the sofa. Making sure there was no immediate danger, Anya led Elena out onto the porch. "Do you know what's wrong with him?" Elena asked. Tears were in the girl's eyes. "I know," she replied briefly. "It's hereditary. My mother had the same thing." Elena couldn't find the words. "No. There's severe damage to the nervous system. There's an injection. It's expensive. It costs so much that no fund will help." Elena swallowed. The decision came instantly. "Tell me how much." Anya named the sum. Elena whistled. Exactly, Anya said with a bitter smile. We don't have enough money. That's why we came here. Arthur wants to paint while he still can, to live out his years with me in peace. And she cried. Elena silently hugged her. Her mind was occupied with something else. She spent the rest of the day on the phone. Even if she sold her apartment, car, and took all the money from her accounts, it wasn't enough by a significant amount. Where could she get it? She asked aloud. Oh, grandmother, if you were alive, no matter how poor we were, you always came up with something, got money from somewhere. She remembered asking where the money came from, and Elena Constance would reply, the house spirit gave it. You can't just take it, only for a great need. Elena fell asleep with difficulty. She was thinking about her grandmother, so she was hardly surprised when she opened her eyes and saw Elena Constance by the bed, gently stroking her head. Granny, Elena exclaimed, am I dreaming? Of course, little one. Did I do something wrong? You're doing everything right, darling. I just don't understand. You're living in my house. You've cleaned everything. But why haven't you properly shaken out the carpet? Elena didn't know what to say. Her grandmother smiled again and disappeared. Elena woke up with a pounding heart. She grabbed the heavy carpet and started rolling it up. Nonsense, she muttered aloud. Gone mad. But suddenly on the floor, she saw an almost invisible square door. There was no handle. She had to struggle, inserting a knife into the gap. The door gave way, opening into a small cellar, the size of a wardrobe. Elena shone a flashlight and found an old metal chest at the bottom. Unable to believe her eyes, she opened the lid and gasped. Well, how is he? Elena asked Anya. She couldn't make it to Arthur's discharge because of business in the city, but she rushed there immediately. He's sleeping, Anya said. Sorry, I'd invite you in, but I'm afraid of waking him. Come over to my place, Elena suggested. The girl nodded. Arriving at Elena's, they sat down at the table. Anya said, I didn't even properly thank you for saving my brother. Thank you. I'll never forget it. Consider yourself like a sister to me now. Perhaps this is the first truly good thing I've ever done. Don't say that. You're a very good person. I know you sold your apartment, your car, took all the money from your account, and also, she looked at Elena sheepishly. Elena laughed. Yes, I also found a treasure in my grandmother's house. It sounds incredible. Exactly. Do you think your grandmother knew? Of course. And she hinted at it in childhood, told fairy tales. But I didn't understand or didn't believe it. As I understand now, she didn't want to use it herself, didn't consider it hers. Is that so? Yes, she believed it could only be taken in a special case, and so it turned out. Anya smiled. It's strange to ask, but do you regret it? Not about saving my brother, meeting us, learning the secret. The property, money, treasure would have remained yours. As it is, you only have your job. Elena smiled. I don't have a job either. I resigned today. Anya's eyes widened. What? But everything you talked about? Your career? Achievements? No, I don't regret it. I would have had a lot of money, but that wouldn't have made me happier. It's strange to say, but I suddenly realized my whole life I strove for success, for wealth. I got it, but I didn't become happier. To understand that, I needed to lose it, even temporarily. I easily traded it for Arthur's life and health. I know him a little, but I'm sure he understands what life is, knows how to appreciate it. Anya's eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them away. And you? Will you stay with us? Elena smiled. For now, yes. I don't know what's next, but for now I'm happy here. I'm glad we met. And we are glad, Anya replied. Very. They talked a little more, and Anya went home to look after her brother. A few days later, Arthur was strong enough to visit his savior. Shall we go for a walk? He asked when he came over. Can you? Elena asked doubtfully. If I stay lying down, I'll die. I feel good. Without discussing it, they walked along the same path past the lake to the hill where Arthur had first painted Elena. Imagine that, she said in surprise. Not so much time has passed since the first time, but it feels like a lifetime. Arthur smiled. As before, he spread out the blanket and they sat next to each other. In my opinion, that's the beauty of life. Sometimes hundreds of years pass the same way, and sometimes in a few weeks, you experience enough for a whole lifetime. Elena smiled. I remember how we sat, and you asked if I believed that everything happened for a reason. Yes, that was me. I was terribly angry with you back then, Elena admitted. I thought you were an eccentric who didn't know life, imagining himself a romantic and a philosopher. Arthur laughed. But every word about me is true. That's who I am. That's a small part of you. You and your sister are amazing. Now I'm sure that meeting you was destiny. He turned his head, looking with curiosity. You never cease to surprise me, Elena. As I said, you see the good in people, even though you didn't show it at first. I'm surprised you're not ready to admit the good in yourself. You know you're smart, hard-working, you'll achieve success. But you stubbornly refuse to admit that you're a wonderful person, worthy of love, friendship, whom one cannot help but love. It's as if you do everything to be considered cold, unfeeling. If my sister and I have helped you see your true self even a little, I'm very happy. Elena suddenly felt hot tears streaming down her face. She didn't hold them back. She moved closer to Arthur. He hugged her, and she rested her head on his shoulder. Words were no longer needed. They sat together, looking at the lake in the summer sun. Elena felt as if a huge burden she had carried since childhood had fallen from her shoulders. She didn't know what would happen next. Would she remain friends with Anya? Would there be a relationship with Arthur? But she knew one thing for sure. She would never lose her true self again.